Hi, today I've got a Metalsub XRE-1000 light, single LED version. This one's come back, it hasn't been charged for some time, so I expect a discharged battery. So just have a quick look at this one. You can get into the light from this end here where you turn the switch light on and off. There's some hexagonal screws in there. Just undo the two screws. And the end cap will just come off. And when we put it back together, there's an O-ring there which we need to look after. So inside the light, we've got some connections in here. So that's the positive side, and this side here is the negative side. This is also positive, and this is half of that positive side. But I suspect that if we put a voltmeter across the plus and minus, we'll end up with absolutely nothing, which is standard for many dive lights, because if they're left in a discharged state, they will just keep discharging, and then there is not enough charging circuit to run the charger. Hopefully it's just a quick jump start across the battery terminals, but may not be. So we take those two fixing screws, they're the things that go onto these ones here to assemble the light, and we can remove the 4 screws holding this in place here. Now, before you do this, it's worth noting which way round this circuit board is fitted. So the LED power charge LED, hold on a second. The power charge LED is this white box here. So with this in this way round, that one there is the plus voltage, that one there is 0 volts, and that one is half of this voltage. So it's worth making sure that when we put it back together, we put it back together in the correct way round. So there's one screw. Two screws. Three screws. Now we can't do much harm at this point because there's no power in the battery, but we obviously, if we do charge the battery up, just need to be a bit more careful how we put it back together. So we're going to turn it over and keep it the same way up, so we now know that this is the positive, this is the negative. So I'm going to put a mark on there. That will just tell me that that's the positive terminal. Again, I'll just do a quick check. I don't suspect there's any power in there anyway, so it's difficult to know which is a positive terminal when there's no power at all. in the battery cell, which there's not. So what we can do now, got a small charger. So here, got a negative terminal and a positive terminal, and I'll see that I got 12 or 11 volts on there, and I'm going to attach that across, making sure I got it the right way around. That pin's going to go in there, that pin on there, the negative in the right place, and I'm going to check to see what power is going into the battery cells. And at the moment I've got 11 volts going in there, which is not a good sign. What I would expect to see is that to be 2 volts going up. The fact it's gone straight to 11 means it's not charging the battery cells. So that's never a good sign. So I'm going to take the head off the light. And just check the battery cells. So as we can see, this battery cell's from June of 2012. So it's quite an old battery cell. And as you can see, there's 4 cells in the battery pack. This is the half voltage. As you can see, the voltage is coming from half the pack. So I'm just going to have a quick look just to see if there's anything in each of the cells. So the problems could be either the cells are all gone, one cell's gone, or the connection between the cells has broken away for any reason. And this bit here is a thermal fuse. So if you are working on this, this will also go if it gets too hot. So I'm just going to check the voltages, make sure we're the correct way around. There's nothing across there at all. Just going to check any signs of any life whatsoever. Basically, there's no sign of life here. I'm just going to check the resistance across the thermal fuse, and that looks in good condition. So I'm just going to apply the power to the battery cells again, but it looks like this one will just need new battery cells. So I put my meter back on 2 volts. And that's gone straight to 11 volts, which is not a good sign because there is not 11 volts going into that battery. It should come up nice and slowly. But there is not going to be 11 volts on that battery cells. So what we're going to do now is we're going to replace the battery cells. a little bit more tricky. Probably suggest that it comes back to me to be done, but if you like a challenge, you can do it yourself. You need a soldering iron. Just check I've got some replacement cells before I start. Luckily we got some replacement cells in stock. Didn't think we were going to then. Don't tend to keep a lot of stock because batteries get old quite quickly, so we want relatively new stock so that we're supplying new items to people. So it's not an easy task to put all this together, so probably worthwhile sending it back. To be done. So this is how we get the packs in. This is from 2022, so it's not that old, fortunately. So now we've got just to take all those parts and fit them back onto there in the right place and the right way around. So I'm going to remove the thermal fuse first off the old one. Just going to clear some space for myself. I'll end up dropping something. Okay. Excellent. So, to remove the thermal fuse, we want to do this as quickly as possible. So we don't want to build up any heat on the fuse. So I'm going to take the yellow wire off. I'm going to take a pair of pinchers on here, which are metal ones, so they will dissipate the heat. So my fingers get hot, I've left it on there too long, and remove the thermal fuse. And this will just keep all the heat going up through my fingers, so that thermal fuse should still be okay. And then we can take the orange wire off. I can stick just a mark on there, just to know which is the orange wire. Obviously we're not going to take those two off. Strip that out of there. and then we're going to undo the solder joint on here. Just excellent. So that's the old battery cells taken away. Obviously we've got to look after those. It could be that they've moved in there, but being that they're now 11 years old, it's probably had their time. Okay, come back in with the new cells. Fortunately, they're a slightly different colour, so we know which ones are new, which is quite handy. I'll strip the tape off. So this end has got to be soldered back into this position. So I'm just going to tin this end first. Oops, can't see. Just going to tin this bit. Drop some solder on there. Need 3 hands for this. And that's got that joint on there. There's a piece of foam goes in the way. That will all line up a bit later on. Up to the top end and fit back into place. Foam's falling out, but we'll worry about that in a minute. So now we know that this side is the orange side, this side is the 0 volts, and this is where the thermal fuse goes. So I'm going to attach this end of the thermal fuse first, so I've got a little bit of room to work in. So I'm just going to tin the thermal fuse. I want to get that end prepared first because I just want to put this end on quickly and then let go as soon as possible. So I'm going to heat the solder up. Stick that on quickly and then let go. And hopefully all the heat's been transferred through the tongs. And then I'm going to attach the 0 volts up to here. So again, I'm going to heat the end first, attach that quickly, and remove the solder. And with a bit of luck, we've kept that. I'm gonna slide the heat shrink back over. And now we should have some voltage on there. So I put that one on the plus side. I've kept my plus side in the right place. Put that on there, and we've got 6.83 volts. So full charge is just over 7 volts. So we're okay. We know the thermal fuse is working because this is the other side that I've just been putting the pin on. We know this side is working, which is the yellow wire in this case. So we've got 0 volts here, 0 volts on this pin. We've got a plus voltage on this pin, which is +6. We won't have anything on this pin here. The blue wire won't have any voltage on it at all. The only time you'll see a voltage on this side is if we've got the LED module plugged in. But because we haven't got the LED module plugged in at this particular point, there's nothing coming up on this particular pin whatsoever. So if we do a check on that, there was nothing. And this one is going to have half of this voltage. So obviously it's not connected at the moment. So when I put that one on, this one will be half the voltage because it's only on half the cells. So we can take the end off here. Bearing in mind this will have a positive voltage on it now, so we don't want to short it against anything. It says which is proving a challenge. Okay, I'm going to have to strip and tin the end on this orange wire. And then that orange wire is going to go onto the pin opposite the 0 volt. So we've got 0 volts here, and we're going to have half voltage on this side. Okay. All going extremely well. It's not always as easy as this, but if you're careful you can change them. So just going to show you on the voltmeter again, just so we're clear about what we got. So I've got my plus voltage on this side and my 0 volts here, so I've got plus 6.83. This one I'm expecting nothing because I haven't got the LED head attached to it, which is fine. And this one I've got half of this voltage, so I've got 3.41 blah, so we're pretty good there. So we can now try to reassemble the cradle and the sleeving. This is the tricky bit because you've got to try and do this, get it all back together without damaging everything. So we put the sleeving back on. Might be worthwhile crossing out the date so you know when you changed it. stay in place. So you're going to need 15 hands for this. Make sure this is going in the correct way round. So we're going into there now. Up the sleeve in. So I'm going to slide the sleeving back down again so I can see what I'm doing. Obviously I don't want to touch anything against the metal, because as we all know, lithium batteries will give quite a large amount of power if they're shorted out. So I'm just going to feed the wires either side of the pin. There we go. So we know this is minus volts and this is half of that. So this is the side where we've got to be particularly careful that we don't want to short the minus voltage across to the plus voltage. And trying to do this so you've got to get everything lined up and pushed into place. I'm going to go back to saying what I started in the beginning. It may be worthwhile sending these back for me to do. Okay, we've got one in, that's good. Trying to do this with the camera is very tricky. We pulled this one back out again now. Let's get this one back in. What's this? Metal. Okay, good. He says, come back out again. I finally got that back into place, which was a huge challenge for some reason. Just see if I've done any damage. And we're still okay. That was a bit of a challenge getting that one in for some reason. Don't know what it was today. Now we've got to line everything back up into place to get the cradle in properly and make sure we got the circuit board in the right place as well. Okay, so that's just lining up reasonably nicely. So this is where the LED head's going to fit. That will all squeeze in there nicely. Good. Okay, so if we haven't done any damage to anything, which is still have plus 6.8 on there. We'll have nothing on that one because we've got no LED head, and we have half voltage on that one. All good. That can go back in the light housing. So this is the switch end, this is the LED head end, and we can just slide that back into place. Then we come to the LED head. Whilst we've got it out, we will just, we've got two O-rings on here, so we can just check that they are clean. No reason why they wouldn't be if they haven't been taken out. And we'll just pop a little bit of grease on the O-rings. Not too much. And pop the LED head back in place. It's nice and tight. And then we can just double check we've got the power in the right place. So we've got 6.83 there. Now we'll have 6.8 or a similar amount on the bottom pin here because we've got the head attached now, and then we have half voltage on the other side. So providing we keep it, we know which way up the light is gone, we can now put the circuit board. So this is our positive pin, this is our negative pin. We can take the circuit board and it's going to go in with this LED uppermost. So this one is going to the positive, this is going to the negative. So the one next to the 12, which is the date, will go into there. So just to make sure, I'm just going to guide it in so it falls correctly into place. So I don't want it, when I screw it into place, just falls nicely into place like that. And then I'm going to take one of the fixing screws and pop it in the opposite side and just tighten that up gently. So I have a hex bolt, and all I've done on this one is I've got to pop a piece of paper in there so that it doesn't slide down onto the circuit board and do any damage whilst I nip it up. Take the other side out now. It's just to guide it into place. And don't think you're going to do too much damage here. I don't think there's any major power at this end, but you might as well just be as safe as you can be. So these two posts are going onto the charging on the charger side, and the charger can go either way round. So that's an AC going into here, goes through the circuit board, and then is going on to the to the battery, etc. So, which is why it needs a certain amount of power in the battery pack for the charger circuit to work. So always fully charge your lights after use, and at least every 6 months when in storage. So I'm just going to carefully put these screws in without shorting anything out. Now when you're reassembling this, you might accidentally touch these switches with your fingers, which will probably turn a light on. So that's okay, we know it's working. That's what the switch is doing, it's actually switching those switches there. So if you accidentally touch any of those and the light comes on, don't drop it. It just means you've knocked one of the switches. And these don't need to be over tight, they're not really holding anything in place, they're just holding the circuit board down and the charging pads, etc. So don't over tighten these. And again, don't over tighten these, because if you do that, you will just snap them. So these don't need to be over tight. Just nip them up and that's good enough. Now as I say, I can press the button with my finger and I can see the light coming on. I can see the LED light on there. It's on red, so it's not fully charged, but we knew that because it was 8 something volts in there. So now we can then reattach the switch. This part here has got an LED with a light part coming through, so the LED can come through to the outside. So that obviously has to go up next to the LED side. There's an O-ring on there, so we'll pop a little bit of grease on there. Doesn't need too much, don't over grease them, it makes it worse. And we're going to push that straight back onto there. There's the LED, there's the LED coming through there, and just ensure that when you put it in, the O-ring is going into place. Once it's in place, you can then tighten up on the 2 hex nuts. Again, tighten up a little bit each side, but don't over tighten them. If you over tighten them, you'll probably snap the bolts on the other side. So just gently tighten up each side until it nips up. And just be careful you don't go one turn too many. Right, that's that all back together. You can see the O-ring is back in the housing okay. That's all back onto there okay. I can switch it on now. I've got a light coming through from there and I've got that onto there. All we now need to do is fully charge the light, run it down and then fully charge it again. And we can do that a few times. Once I've done it a few times, I'll just check those pins are fully tight, just nip them up a little bit again, but again, very, very small amount. So I just get the charger the customer returned with the light and we should be done. Customer's charger, and you can see it's probably a new charger because the pins are very, very shiny. fact, the light's in very, very good condition, so it may actually be new light, but now it's got it's a new light with new batteries. These can go either way round. The circuit board will deal with the issue there, and what we should see is a solid, turn that off, a solid green light on here. So we will leave it on the solid green light for a long period of time, probably about 3 or 4 hours, and when it's fully charged, this light will be flashing green. It looks like it's the wrong way round, but that's the way it works on these. So it's a solid green light when it's charging and flashing green when it's fully charged. So I shall leave that now for 3 or 4 hours, and then that should be all good to go, but I'll probably charge it up and discharge it a few times. Thanks for watching. Hope you found it interesting.